Today is the International Day of Remembrance of the Bosnian Genocide by Serbia, so this video is, on the face of it, primarily about that, but may be relevant to some more current issues, if you know what I mean. Because in 1992, a small handful of journalists, including Maggie O'Kane, Roy Gutman, and Ed Voliami, revealed the existence of concentration camps in Bosnia during the war, specifically the camps in Manjača, Trinopolje, and Omarska. And the use of that phrase, concentration camps, drew huge amounts of criticism, not only from Serbian officials, but from other international journalists who called it profoundly misleading and irresponsible journalism. Especially because the discourse was using the term concentration camp to describe contemporary events minimizes the horrors committed by Nazi Germany. This was in the 1990s, but you may have heard similar arguments more recently. So longtime BBC foreign correspondent John Simpson was one of the biggest critics of that reporting, saying that they were simply transit camps for civilians displaced by the conflicts. Eventually, all of that led to a defamation trial where they were mostly busy bickering over the specific placements of certain sections of barbed wire fences and about the way the footage of the camps was shot and edited. But by the end, the journalists who used the term concentration camps were vindicated across the board. Essentially, it came down to the fact that concentration camps do not need to measure up to Nazi extermination camps to be called concentration camps, because there's a term for that. They're called Nazi extermination camps. And more broadly, a genocide does not need to measure up to the Holocaust to be recognized as a genocide. Because there's a word for that, it's called the Holocaust. And if the shoe fits, acknowledging that something is a concentration camp or a genocide does not take away from the suffering of the victims of past genocides. And right now, there's a near unanimous consensus among human rights organizations and genocide scholars, including genocide scholars from Israel, that what is happening in Gaza is in fact a genocide. And the fact that the Israeli government and its supporters do not want you to use that term doesn't make it untrue. Because the perpetrators of genocide almost never acknowledge their guilt. Here's Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić crying at the UN about the vote to recognize the Srebrenica genocide. Which, by the way, Israel doesn't recognize either, nor do they recognize the Armenian genocide. Anyway, follow for more.